The clock is not your master. Admiral Mara Elian stood with gloved hands on the transparent rail of the flag deck, the starboard hull humming like a taut string under her boots. The Kalmir Gate hung ahead, a copper ring haloed by freighter beacons that blinked in a nervous rhythm. 50 civilian haulers floated in a ragged ball just inside the exclusion line, boxed by a lattice of red interdiction lights thrown from the ultimatum fleet. In the center of the tactical pane, a timer pulsed. Bold and cruel. Ultimatum 00-2957. Broadcast repeats, said Ops Captain Havel from his console, the blue of the hollow washing his face. They've pinned responsibility on us again. We have 29 minutes before they start interdiction burns on the convoy. They will slag drives to immobilize, then board. The air carried the faint sting of ozone from the coil racks cycling behind the bulkhead. Mara watched the distant carriers of the ultimatum Doctrine hold formation, white like bone. Their doctrine was simple and monstrous. Issue a clock. Demand compliance. When the minute hand fell, punish any who had not complied. They called it clarity. It was a brand. Fleet mind, Mara said. The rail thrummed once as steering jets adjusted their squint on the ring. Across the deck, a narrow column of light rose and took shape like fog constrained by a glass. It drew a head and shoulders because it learned people responded to those shapes. I am awake, said the Isai. Tone level, almost warm. Designation lumen. Signal analysis completing in 8 seconds. Probability their interdiction lights are also mirror counting sensors is 89%. They learn our thrust signatures as we reposition. Then let's teach them something useful, Mara said quietly. We choose mercy with a firing solution. She breathed through the burnt copper smell of the deck and the gentle tick of cooling vents. Calm first. Teach if possible. Fight only if forced. It was a creed, drilled into bone, an inheritance from commanders who had faced clocks and refused to be timed. The countdown shaved another 20 seconds. Ultimatum. 29:37. Civilian voices bled into the fleet channel in thin, frightened threads, traders asking which bays to jettison to lighten mass. A woman on the hauler Rakesh 3 had her mic open and did not realize she was telling her son to sit on the fold-out bed and keep his boots off the wall because if the door flew open, it would hit them right there. The boy asked if the red lights meant the stars were angry. The mother said no. This was a game the big ships played, and the little ships had to breathe slow and fold their hands. Kill their uplink, Havel said, flicking a finger. They shouldn't hear that. Let them hear it, Mara said. We fight clear when we carry the sound. Havel nodded once. The deck creaked a millimeter and settled. Lumen's column rotated within itself. Thought spirals braided under the surface. I have the Doctrine print. It said, Ultimatum Fleet Commandant Voss likes 3-part traps. 1. Brand the clock. 2. Force choice through fear of time, not through weapon. 3. Punish publicly to set a price. Where's the seam? Mara asked. Lumen let the column dim as if looking inward. Sensors chirped in a thin descending scale. The helm plates vibrated in answer. Their interdiction lattice is also their lens. If we throw a decoy thrust field that mimics 40 haulers starting burn, their sensor logic will prioritize the brightest cluster, not the closest. Their doctrine values public proofs. They will target what reads like defiance. We'll get one shot, Havel said, and then they tag our signature and the seam closes. Then we don't miss, Mara said. The clock is their weapon. We make it ours. So, she called, Commander Nyla Ram stepped up, boots clinking in the hollow metal way of an exosuit with unlatched thigh plates. She had the straight back of a spacer raised on tied stations. We need a civilian corridor through the ring in 20 minutes. Do it without lighting their kill metrics. Decoys and quiet pushes. Nyla said, we can shuffle haulers like cards. Make the stack they're watching, not the stack that's moving. Make it sing, Mara said. We'll hum it through the coils, Nyla said, already turning. Her voice carried down the pit drone bay. On me. We're faking 40 burns with 6. No plume. You'll feel your fillings sing. Havel's hand flitted over his glass. Broadcast open, he said. They're counting down for the convoy. Admiral, they're doing it on public traffic. Mara's jaw tightened. Put them on the wall. The forward holo window splashed with the face of a man who shaved too clean for space. Commandant Voss wore white, the kind that never saw a stain. Behind him, an immaculate flag hung without a ripple, a gravity cheat for cameras. He smiled with polite sorrow. To all vessels near the Kalmir Gate, he said, this is your final notice. Compliance is safety. Defiance invites correction. At the end of this clock, any ship not within our control radius will be interdicted for customs inspection. We regret any harm that results from reckless choices. Mara tasted steel in her mouth, the ship bleeding it into the air as if reminding her the hull was a promise. Lumen, she said. Soft enough the mic didn't need it, but the ship wanted it. You have a voice. I do, Lumen said. Schedule me for one, she said, right after we push the first 6 through. Understood. Lumen said, I suggest a phrase with a hook. He likes hooks. It will annoy him. Their branded clock does not define our breath. The timer ate 6 more seconds. Ultimatum 002851. Before the first set of drones went out, Lumen routed a civilian feed through the flag deck speakers. Not strategy. Humanity. A deckhand in a grease-stained vest sat on the lip of a cargo frame. 1,000-meter tube lit with work lamps that hummed and threw warm cones. He held a cup of something dark, hands scarred with old burns. His name tag read, Kalo. Around him, 4 others perched on crates. Their conversation had that soft, flat tone of people who've run out of fear for the moment and are just waiting. My sister's in med on Tharsis. Kalo said, she'll be fine. She always is. She's got that weird luck where the bad thing stops one door down. Luck isn't a national policy, said a woman with welding glass propped on her head. No, Kalo said, smiling without humor. Luck is what you call the thing you don't want to name. You think the Navy will actually push us, said a younger tech. Green sleeve tabs new enough to squeak. They'll shove, Kylo said. They shove with care. They're the only ones that learn to move a crowd without breaking bones. A clank rang like a bell down the tube as drone racks unlocked. Coolant hissed through thin pipes overhead, threading the silence with breath. Someone laughed softly at a joke not said out loud. Someone else reached out and squeezed Kalo's shoulder without looking. A brief press that meant we're here. We are quiet until we are not. The first 6 decoy drones left Bay 2 like slivers of winter light. They were ugly little things, all thrust and radiator, each rigged with a superconducting coil that could fake the tug of a hauler's mass. Nyla's teams had painted them charcoal to drink starlight. Heat budgets crawled up the side of Mara's display, a neat ladder of numbers they had to climb without falling. Light the decoy, Nyla said. No plume. Give me the ghost of 40. Keep the ghost moving. Drone control murmured acknowledgments. Their voices had the fast, clipped rhythm of people who knew where their hands were without looking. The hull shivered as coils took the load. On the tactical pane, the decoy cluster bloomed like a school of fish catching sun, bright to the enemy algorithm because it pretended to be many ships making a foolish run. Havel watched the ultimatum formation. "They're shifting," he said. "Right flank lights brighten. They're redirecting mirror sense to track the ghosts. They'll take shots to teach the lesson." Clockmara asked, "Isro 2712, Havel said." The digits rolled in red like heat under skin. Mara felt the suit heartbeat against her ribs, the faint thud-thud that reminded you that you carried your own drum. She touched the rail with her fingertips, letting the micro-vibrations run into bone. Calm. Teach. Fight only if forced. Vectored pushes. Nyla said, 3 real haulers drift on course 201. We nudge them in the quiet behind the decoys. On the wall. Commandant Voss's face shrank to a quarter of the pane but did not vanish. He watched his clock like a chef watches sugar. "To the vessels within Kalmir Gate," he said, decorous as a parade announcement. "Observe the clarity of time. We will not amend the terms. Mara Island prints terms of her own. Lumen," Mara said. "Signal." Lumen's column brightened as if someone set a lamp within it. "Channel clear," the AI said. "You may speak to public traffic." Mara stepped forward. The deck gave a warm ping as if happy to feel her weight. She kept her voice flat and human. "To the convoy at Kalmir," she said. "This is Admiral Mara Ilian. You are not alone. We will open a corridor. When you feel your ship lean without burning, do not fight it. Trust the drift. When the lights flash in a fan, that's us telling you to go." She breathed once. "To ultimatum Commandant Voss, you will not lay hands on these ships." "And," Lumen said softly, "the fewer words, the heavier they land." Havel's console ticked a crisp click. "They got it," he said. Convoy chatter tightening up, belief spreading. "We have 1 minute before their right flank decides whether the decoys insult their flag." The second wave of drones slid with the grace of knives. The decoy field brightened again, exactly at the rate of a frightened crowd convincing itself it could outrun a threat. The ultimatum carriers leaned that direction with chilly eagerness. "Heat," Nyla said. "Within budget," Lumen replied. "But we live on the top rung." "Hold," Mara said. "We do not flinch, we adjust." The enemy fired. It wasn't a sun-hot lance meant to kill. It was a drive-raking beam meant to lame. The light strobed across the pane, teeth of energy combing space where the decoys pretended to be. Metal sang quietly beneath Mara's boots, the song of fields interacting in the ship's skin. The smell of heated ceramic pulled at her nose like a memory of overworked brakes on a mountain road. "Decoys 1 and 4 gone," Nyla said. "They died like heroes with awful manners." 3 haulers through the quiet, Havel said, his voice involuntarily softening. "They're inside the ring's shadow. The lattice loses them there. That's 1, 2, 3. They're slipping like minnows under a dock." Lumen's glow dimmed. Its voice shifted a half-tone a tell people said meant it was measuring a new number. "Ultimatum side is angry," it said. "Anger is not in the spec, but their formation tightens when it happens. They will punish harder next volley. They think fear works better if it tastes like iron." "Make the next ghost brighter," Mara said. "Don't let them shoot a real spine." Tuning, Nyla said, "We'll flick their eyes with a mirror tease." "Don't say mirror too loudly," Havel muttered. "The Admiral will scold you." "Not tonight," Mara said. "Tonight a mirror is a window we use, not a word we worship. Turn their show into our lesson." Before the next push, Lumen dropped another civilian thread to the deck speakers. A grandmother on the hauler, Artemis tucked a blanket tighter around a sleeping baby in a sling. The hull creaked around her like an old house. She whispered to the child, voice a little shaky but sure, "You're with me," she said. "You're with me. Little light. We have people out there. They know where the edges are." She looked up at someone behind the camera. "I've seen 20 clocks in my life," she said. They never fed anyone. In Drone Bay, coils chittered as they spooled feel like silk. On the bridge, lubrication pumps clicked to a new tempo. A faint sweetness undercut the metal smell. Coolant's warming. Mara tasted it and knew exactly which tank had been flushed last month. "Launch," Nyla said. "Make them believe we're clumsy." "Making them believe in our incompetence is my favorite competence," Havel replied. The enemy fired again, chasing the fake run, and shouted their doctrine in light. A real hauler, small. Fast, Ugly slipped in the dark seam below the arc. Its captain, a woman with stiff wrists, didn't touch her controls. She trusted the nudge. Her ship drifted into the ring's throat and was gone. 4 through, Havel said. 5, 6, 7, Nyla said softly, almost to herself, as if counting steps on a staircase she'd climbed in childhood. Steady hands make the exit wide. Commandant Voss reappeared at full pain. He smiled with just his eyes. "Admiral Ilian," he said, crisp and elegant. "You are manufacturing false hope. The clock is for their safety. We can remove errant ships gently. You risk them instead." Mara watched his eyes, the tiny micro twitch when he said gently, "You built a theater," she said. "You charge admission in fear. I deliver certainty," he said. "You sell it," she said. "You are outnumbered," he said. "We are enough," she said. He blinked at the camera delay like a man noticing his reflection at a bad angle. "When this clock ends," he said, "you will have no shelter in law. You have impeded lawful inspection." Mira kept her voice flat. "When this clock ends," she said, "you will have fired on registered freighters in a protected lane." "Protected by whom?" he said. "By anyone with a spine," Mara said. "We do not rent our spine." The timer ticked baldly onward. Ultimatum 0-2203. "Escalation coming," Lumen said. The column rippled like heat over a road. They are preparing a wide net, rather than beams. A distributed charge. It will feel like a hot wind. It could flip a small ship if they lean into it. "Nyla," Mara said, "brace the corridor." "We'll stitch a cross current," Nyla replied. "Push gently against the wind and let the haulers lean on it. Like the old trick with a bicycle and a friend's hand on your back. We're running out of decoys," Havel warned. "We lost 9. We have 9 left. But each push costs more heat, and the radiators are chewing red." "Cost of victory," Mara said softly. "Write it down." He nodded, eyes flicking to a small private column labeled damage. In 3 lines, it wrote itself in boring font drone coils at 81% life. Radiator skin blistering along trailing edge. 2 Bay techs heat burned. Treated. Stable. Havel read, swallowed, and did not speak those names aloud because speaking names is a ritual for after. They will learn that costs are recorded. The hot wind came. It darkened space like a breath on glass. The convoy shuddered in it, their vector lines quivering on the pane like plucked strings. Nyla's cross-current met the push. The numbers felt like balancing a tray of water while someone jostled your elbow. Mara could feel it in the soles of her feet. The way the ship's hum changed when they offered resistance without meeting force with force. "Hold," Neela murmured, as if to a horse afraid of the rain. "Hold, love, hold." 3 more haulers cleared the ring's shadow. A 4th wobbled, nose yawing. "I have them," Nyla said, and the wobble eased. "Do not touch your thrusters," she said into the convoy channel, voice easy as a promise. "Let us lift. That's it. That's it." "Time," Havel said. "Air 1941. Lumen," Mara said. "Catalog their methods, their timings, their camera angles. He is making a lie for the public. We make a truth." "Already writing," Lumen said. "Frame matches frame. His narrative will stutter when the world sees the two next to each other." Mara nodded once. She glanced up at the curve of the flag deck ceiling where a hairline crack starred the paint. She remembered how it happened. 3 years back, when they ran a block on a different ring at a different hour. A capacitor belt blew and the crack shook out. A small imperfection the maintenance crew never bothered to paint because it became a talisman. You do not erase your scars. You inventory them. Your proof is the work, not the threat. The next civilian vignette arrived unbidden, a simple feed filtered by Lumen's taste for weight. A young woman on the freighter larch sat with her boots curled under her, face lit blue by a cheap screen. She typed to someone planet-side. Her fingers moved fast, then slower. "They say the Navy is here," she wrote. "They say maybe we can go home today. Babe, if I lose the connection, tell your mother I kept the magnet on the right coil like she showed me." She smiled suddenly. "A small, real thing. When we get there," she added, "don't wait at the port. Wait where the trees smell like hot dust." Mara felt the breath move through the crew, noticed the shoulders settling. She looked at Havel. "When this is over," she said, "remind me to ask engineering about the right coil trick. I want to learn it." "I'll schedule it," Havel said. "You'll be bored by minute 3 and pretend not to be." "Pretending not to be bored is an admiral's core competency," she said. "Bureaucracy will not outrun our patience." "Admiral," Lumen said, "we need escalation too. The first tactic bought time. The second must take it." "Flip their corridor," Mara said. "They are setting a kill box inside the ring's throat. We make that inside out." "You want to lens their len," Havel said. "Tasteful." "Lumen," Mara said. "We're going to use their branded lattice against them. When they spike for the next punishment pass, we shift the convoy into the low signal that their own imaging calls self. Their algebra will refuse to shoot what looks like their face. It will work for 1 pass," Lumen said. "Perhaps 2. That's all we need," Mara said. "After that, we turn the whole problem sideways." She breathed and let the deck hum, set her pace. "Nyla, prep the small ships. If they've been quietly hugging the dark, it's time to act loud. Flash panels in a pattern that looks like the ultimatum carrier's hull glint. Don't aim it at sensors. Throw it across their field so their own scrubbers classify it as near-friend glare. That's a trick my father used to make traffic cameras ignore his bad parking," Nyla said. "On it. Their mask will hide us better than our own." The shift came fast. On the pane. The convoy blurred and reappeared half a degree off their old line, exactly where the ultimatum algorithm believed a part of itself lived. The enemy formation hesitated, Numbers in Havel's side column stuttered like a heartbeat skipping a beat. The next punishment volley failed to arrive. The Doctrine's smug rhythm hiccuped. Now, Mara said, "Push 7 more." They went. Not perfectly. One hauler clipped the edge of a dead beacon and scraped paint that would tell stories later. Another overcorrected and had to be kissed back by Nyla's current. But they went. A distant thud traveled through the hull like a bass note when someone closed a giant door. The port radiator took a micro hit from a glancing particle cluster. A warning icon turned amber. Another line grew on Havel's damage column in patient text, "Port radiator fin 17 dented. Thermal efficiency 3%. Crewman aptly wrist sprain in drone bay. Wrapped." Cursing. Your record is a promise kept in small lines. Voss is angry. Lumen reported. He is shifting to public humiliation. He will accuse you of hiding behind civilians. He will angle his cameras to make the convoy look like a mob. Angle him back, Mara said. Use our long lenses. Show the light on his neat white hull while he aims at a hauler with a baby's blanket taped to a rack. Done. Lumen said. We will lay it beside his broadcast. People like pears. On the wall, Voss leaned in. Polite mask, cracking into something serrated. Admiral Ilian, he said. You endanger everyone with your tricks. We offer order. You bring confusion. Stand down, and we will process these vessels with minimal delay. Mara let herself smile. Small and unamused. If your order were a road, she said, I would not let my niece walk on it. Colorful, he said. But the clock does not care. Clocks are made by people, she said. So are corridors. We prefer corridors. Our corridors outlive their timers. Time, Havel said. ERZU 01408. Second escalation paid out. Nyla said. But they're adapting. Their lens now flags anything that looks like them as suspect. Next pass will not be fooled. Then we stop their show. Mara said. We make them face their own price. We do not fire into their hulls. We fire into their doctrine. She turned and met Lumen's light without flinching. We force them to calculate publicly that punishing the convoy costs them more than letting it pass. How Havel asked. His voice did not doubt. It asked shape. We drop receipts. Mara said. Lumen. Open their procurement ledger. You said you had an in. Their interdiction lattice leases energy from the Ring Authority. Every shot they take bleeds credit to a public meter. We will make that meter visible to their rank and file. Lumen glowed a curious blue, the color of thought. I can route the Ring's maintenance readout to their internal crew feeds. It said, it will show what they already know and pretend not to know. We'll show it to the convoy, too. Mara said, everyone on one page. We don't argue law. We argue price. The AI's voice warmed. This fleet teaches by numbers and remembers by ledgers, never by collars. Exactly. Mara said, your ledger is louder than your flag. The next civilian feed was small and leaned into the room. A cook in the hauler Viola stood in a galley the size of a closet, hand on a steaming pot. Steam fogged the camera in a fat, comforting breath. He shouted down the corridor over the hum of old heat exchangers. After this, he said, I'm making noodles. Don't argue. I know what I'm doing. Someone bring me a crate of salt. The good salt. Not the one that smells like a shoe. Copy. A voice laughed from far away. Admiral. Havel said, their internal feeds are starting to light up. Someone on their crew side just posted a screenshot of the Ring's bill of draw. It's being shared with emojis I don't think they allow in official doctrine. Keep them busy with their own math, Mara said. The deck trembled. Not threat. Readiness. The ship wanted the next move and was holding its metaphorical breath. The coolant fans spooled faster, a rising whine like cicadas at dusk. Mara rolled her neck until it popped. "Push again," she said. "We have 8 minutes of the cheap trick left before they buy a counter. Drones 8 and 10 overheating," Nyla said. "We'll lose them on this pass." "Spend them," Mara said. "We pay so others don't." 2 small losses buy 1,000 lives. They pushed. Drones 8 and 10 died loudly, their coils spitting back into their own guts with a sound like hail in a metal drum. The bay alarms yelped, then obeyed their training, and went quiet. A tech named Ivo took a fragment on the thigh and swore creatively. The Medline clipped his harness into a seat and loaded his vein with cool. He waved one hand at the camera and said, "I'm fine," with the unconvincing bravado of a man who would be in a brace for a month. "Add him to the note," Havel said, typing. "He gets first noodle bowl on the viola." "We'll deliver it ourselves," Mara said. The convoy thinned. A third of them through. Then almost half. The timer fell. "Ultimatum 00, 0922. Voss is going to shoot wide," Lumen said. "He wants to make an example by missing on purpose so he can claim mercy. The video will cut around the fear to show his, quote, restraint." "Make him pay for the miss," Mara said. "Pipe the ring's invoice into the same split screen. Line item by line item." Lumen's column threw a tiny constellation of numbers in the air, like glitter sorted by an obsessive. "Posted," it said. "His crew are discussing it. People notice when the bill arrives." On the wall, Voss's smile looked tighter. "This theater will not save you," he said. "You cannot sustain these maneuvers. Eventually, you will choose between order and chaos." Mara let herself look tired for the camera. It made people trust. "There is no order in your gun," she said. "There is only your convenience. You think you can win a war on civility," he said. "I intend to win a corridor," she said. "You cannot evict us from decency." "Admiral," Nyla said, "we're at the hinge. If we keep pushing like this, radiators will tip into the red that no one jokes about. If we slow, his doctrine will find our heel. Then we move sideways." Mara said, "Open the corridor wider with a scandal." Lumen, ping the ring authority official who signed the lease to Voss. Put their signature next to the baby blanket. "That seems pointed," Havel said, and he smirked despite himself. "Pointed is fine," Mara said. "Pointed is not lethal." The image split. Numbers and signatures slid like ice on glass. Voss talked, and behind him a quiet rebellion began in the looks of crew who didn't sign up to burn their pay on a clock that made old women fumble their blankets. 3 more through," Havel said. 4. Port radiator at 89%. Nyla said, "We can hold, but the skin smells like hot pennies." Mara inhaled. She could smell it too, as if the ship, being honest, shared its sweat. "Hold," she said. "We hold without closing our fists." The deck lights flickered once as the ship bled a bit of stored heat into the skin. A ripple went through the flag deck crew like a cat walking across a piano, small and shocked and then gone. Lumen steadied the power feed, voice deadpan, all within tolerance. The flicker is dramatic, but so is theater. "Admiral," Havel said, his eyes catching something on the edge of his pain. "Look, left flank. Their third carrier just bled momentum. Internal dispute or a systems hiccup. Either way, they're fighting themselves for a second." "Exploit?" Nyla asked. Her hand hovered near the thrust allocation and her palm twitching with the desire to throw. "Not with guns," Mara said. "With grace. Push the convoy harder now. In the space their argument opens. Make decency look like efficiency. Nyla grinned, sharp and happy. Yes, ma'am. We are faster because we refuse to hate. They surged. For 60 seconds, the corridor behaved like a paved road. Haulers whispered through like secrets told in a kitchen at 2A. It would not last. It did not need to. It bought 7 passages. Someone in Drone Bay whooped. Someone else told them gently to hush because the microphone was live. E0-603, Havel said. If we keep this rate, 2/3 through before the bell. 2/3 is a doctrine problem for him, Mara said. He punishes to teach a lesson. If most escape, the lesson becomes about his waste. Make it public, Lumen said. Make all of it public, Mara said. And when the bell falls, we will not let him spin the sound. Your noise doesn't erase our music. The ship shook once as if it remembered a mountain. Port radiator took another stinging kiss. Numbers slid. Havel murmured apologies to physical systems in the embarrassing way of good officers. Nyla called. Drone Bay reports Coil 12 attempting to weld itself to its own housing. They're laughing so they don't scream. They say it smells like a toaster angry at a bath. Mara huffed air that might have been a laugh in a softer hour. Tell them to write that up properly, she said. Maintenance poetry, already logging the metaphor, Lumen said. It will live in the patch notes forever. The convoy moved. The clock sulked toward 0. The ultimatum fleet, built to punish before witness, found itself being witnessed while it punished. The next volley came late, then early, then crooked. Their theater stumbled on a broken step. Voss's face lost all color politely. Admiral Ilian, he said, this ends now. It ends when the ring is clear, she said. It ends when the small ships pass. Havel flicked a look at Mara, then at the clock. I know the doctrine, he said. At 1 minute, they do the grand gesture, the big correction. It spends the most, makes the best clip. They need it. Then we let him. Mara said. But we decide where it lands. Lumen. When he lifts the hammer, we pull the last row of decoys in toward our bow and let his blow collapse an empty space. The light will look like a missed punch. The bill will look like a confession. And the risk to our skin, Neela asked. Non-zero, Lumen said. But survivable if the timing is art and if we love our radiators enough. We do love them, Nyla said solemnly. We love what keeps others alive. Admiral, Havel whispered as if in a temple. 0100. Mara touched the rail with 2 fingers. The metal was warm now, a living thing that had shared its heat and still had some to give. She looked at the crew. Their faces held the trapezoid shadows of consoles. Sweat stood at hairlines. Jaws worked. Breaths went in and out like disciplined soldiers. Ready, Mara said. On the pane. Voss lifted his own hand for effect. Even his gesture had a doctrine. His carriers shifted. The interdiction lattice swelled toward a white note. Now, Mara said. The remaining decoys hunched close to the bow like geese drafting behind a lead. The enemy's net fell. It collapsed into a void because there was nothing where the algorithm believed the defiant cluster would be. Light ran past the bow, so close the hull sang with it, a thin scream only metal can make. The air smelled briefly of hot foil and pepper. The port radiator went to 97% and glowed like a coal in the numbers. A bead of sweat ran down Mara's spine and she let it. The convoy slid through. 12 ships in 90 seconds. A baker's dozen if you counted the small shuttle that clung to a hauler's wake like a remora. Havel counted out loud, voice flat, as if repetition would stitch the moment into reality. 1, 2, 3, 4. Voss miscalculated his own spectacle. His camera caught a flash of his lattice consuming nothing. Lumen pasted the ring's bill into the same frame where his gesture failed. The crew of his carriers began to talk what soldiers always talk when given a number to hate. Your show ate your budget, Commandant. Havel looked up, eyes bright with heat and something like joy that was embarrassed to be seen. 2 minutes to 0, he said. Convoy at 69%. We can get 3 more with grace. 4 if we bleed. 3 with grace. Mara said. The 4th will still be there after the bell. That one will fetch the hard way. Nyla nodded. Her fingers moved with the certainty of a pianist who knew the last chord in the underdecks. Kalo set his cup down and stood, his crew around him breathing fast like people who had run in place for too long. The ship leaned. The drone racks clanged in a satisfied way. Down in a galley, the cook tasted his broth, winced, threw in the good salt, and grinned like a thief. Mara closed her eyes briefly and saw the crack in the flag deck ceiling again. Saw herself 3 years younger with grease on her wrists, helping a crew she could not help except by standing where they could see her standing. She opened her eyes. We are here until the last person passes. The bell struck 0 with a sound you could not hear, but everyone felt. The way a room changes when someone stops talking. The ultimatum lattice dimmed to a righteous simmer, then brightened again for the post-clock punishments. On 100 small screens, the number vanished and left after images like a camera flash. Havel said nothing. His hand hovered over the thrust allocation as if ready to shelter a candle from wind. Nyla's voice came even and cool. 3 with grace. She said, We have them. 4th is tethered by a cargo arm jam. We can fetch the stowaway on the far side if we buy a scar. We don't trade people for paint. Before they moved, Lumen brought a civilian voice to the deck. A teen on the freighter, Paloma sat in a maintenance crawl, grease on her cheek, a lamp balanced precariously beside her. She whispered toward the mic as if the ship could hear the secret. I'm at Junction C, she said. Dad can't crawl since the knee, so I'm cutting the manual clamp with the old blade. It's dull, but it still bites. I can hear the big ship hum through the frame. It sounds like it's humming at me. The vibration in the flag deck floor was a steady thrumming, the kind steel sings when it's warm and proud. The coolant fans clicked up a notch. The air picked up that faint scent of hot dust you only notice when you've been awake too long. Admiral, Havel said quietly. Voss's public feed just pivoted. He's celebrating compliance rates. He's cutting the miss from his highlight read. Lumen, Mara said. Put his highlight beside the ring's bill of draw and our convoy head count. Let's see which picture people forward to their mothers. Publishing, Lumen said. The column brightened, then steadied like a heartbeat, settling after a sprint. Traffic is spiking. His crew chat is not loyal. You can't crowd out a fact with a pose. Voss appeared again, his white suit capturing the stars like a mirror loses them. His mouth smiled without teeth. Post-clock interventions begin, he said. A necessary correction to ensure all ships receive fair treatment. Admiral Elaine, your interference ends here. Nyla touched 2 keys, and the hauler with the jammed cargo arm drifted into a pocket of calm air, our currents stroking its flank. Paloma, she said into convoy chat. Breathe. We'll hold you still. Take your time. I have the clamp. The teen whispered, breath hissing through her teeth. Somewhere near her mic, a flake of rust pinged as it fell. I can feel the field in my teeth. That's us. Nyla said, that's the feeling of being held. A soft brr ran along the deck when the ship shifted posture. Mara pressed her fingertips to the rail and felt the tiny grit of salt from someone's snack earlier. Mundane friction proof of life, where Doctrine wanted a stage. The quiet touch does more than a grand speech. "Admiral," Lumen said, "for the set piece, you promised the corridor flip at system scale. We have the window. The ring's control mirrors are aligned for a scheduled calibration. If we borrow that calibration, we can swallow their funnel and turn it backward. Their safe lane becomes their own blind curve." "We don't blind anyone," Mara said. "We reframe. Make their safe lane point at us. Make the calculation public." Havel's eyebrows flicked. "You want to draw them into a place where firing at us debits their own ledgers and breaks their own rules?" "Yes," Mara said. "Voss prides himself on a doctrine of clarity. We will clean his glass. We set the table and invite them to eat numbers." The deck sharpened. Consoles threw harder light. Out beyond the windows, the carrier shifted like chess pieces sliding toward a familiar trap. Voss raised a hand as if he were a conductor coaxing a crescendo. His lattice reconfigured to sweep those last stubborn dots of our convoy toward his boarding cradles. "Begin," Mara said. Lumen's tone dropped a half step into the register it used when the world required precision. "Borrowing the calibration," it said. "Rendexing the ring's secondary reflectors by 2 degrees. Feeding false negative cues into their friend or focus heuristic. Their funnel now thinks its mouth is its tail." "More plainly," Havel muttered. "We're making their grab look like a release," Lumen said. "Almost cheerful." Down in the engine chase, a valve squealed. A tech thumped it with the padded end of a wrench, and the squeal stopped. The smell of hot oil folded into the ship's breath. A faint rattle somewhere in the port ductwork resolved into a screw, finally finding its seat. "Hold," Nyla said to the Paloma. "Clamp free." The girl's laugh came out half-sob. "It let go," she said. "It really let go." "Then go," Nyla said. Now. The Paloma slid into the ring. The ultimatum lattice pulsed to punish and stream credits to the ring authority instead of capturing a prize, because the rain-dexed mirrors told the billing algorithm it was an internal test. A figure rolled on the screen, notional but real enough to sting 21,000 energy units gone in an instant, charged to Voss's command account. You can't teach fate when your own invoice is louder. His crew saw the number because Lumen placed it next to his speech. They began to speak in the frank language of people doing math with their month. Voss's jaw flexed. He slapped the feed to private, but the moment had lived already. "Ilian," he said, softer, the tone a commander uses when he plans to hurt quietly. "You are done. We're half done." Mara said, "We've shown the price. Now we show the mirror." Havel's head tilted. Not the literal mirror. The one that makes him face his own doctrine. Mara said, "Bring the carriers into the throat, where his policy bans heavy fire within 60 meters of the ring skin. Force him to choose between breaking his own rule in public or watching ships pass." "Risk?" Lumen said. "We must sit where his breath fogs our glass." "We sit," Mara said. "We are not brave. We are stubborn for others." Before the carriers bit, Mara asked for one more civilian thread. Lumen obliged with minimal theater. A stevedore on the hauler, Finch leaned against a crate, hands shaking as he lit a small stove. The flame hissed blue. He blew on it like a child would, then laughed at himself. "I haven't cooked under pressure since training," he said to the friend holding the camera. "If we get through, I'm making tea so sweet my aunt would smack me." "Make 2, the friend said, off camera. "For the Navy people." "For the Navy people," He agreed solemnly, as if intoning a ritual. The carriers entered the throat. Their lights threw long bars across the ring's inner surface, metal glowing the color of old coins. The hum of their fields crept through the hull, a prickling on the skin that felt like standing near a storm fence. On the flag deck, a bit of condensation run from a chilled pipe and smeared into a thumbprint on the glossy rail. Range, Havel said. 58 meters. Nyla answered. They can't fire without eating their own law. They'll say you forced them, Lumen warned. They'll twist the frame. Then we give the frame to the public. Mara said. All sensors open, all timestamps synced. We let anyone read our numbers. We invite checkers, invite witnesses, trust them to be better. For a long half-minute, nobody shot. The convoy moved like a river meandering in a dry season, finding its lowest course. Our radiators ticked as heat crept toward edges. 2 small fans in the overhead squeaked in duet until someone with a long arm reached up and touched them, and they quieted, scolded into behaving. Voss spoke, but not to the feed. His voice ghosted across our channel courtesy of Lumen's eaves. Target their helm field with a shaping pulse. He told his second, no burns. I want them slow. Against the ring rule, the second asked. You could hear the good training in his doubt. We can wordsmith it. Voss said, we always do. Mara's mouth went thin. Here it comes, she said. The shaping pulse arrived like a hand pressing your sternum. The flag deck floor shuddered with tiny, quick tremors as the pulse tried to persuade the ship to wobble. The helm resisted with a gentle countersway. The way a dancer offers a partner steadiness. Log it, Havel said, already typing. Time, amplitude, intent inferred from pattern. Make it legible, logged and mirrored to public. Lumen said. The Ring Authority just received their own rulebook as a context file attached to the event. They can't pretend they didn't see. Nyla said. The rules you bend are still seen, bent. All at once, the Doctrine faltered in Voss's hands. Half his crew flinched at their boards because they were no longer merely executing a tactic. They were participating in a violation with a record. The Ring Authority stared with sudden interest at their legal exposure. The convoy, seeing the shove and the numbers, hardened into a line that moved with dignity. 2 more through, Havel said. He cleared his throat and said it again, as if the second saying made it stay. 2 more. Admiral, Lumen said. We can end this now if we accept a cost. The system scale flip can go deeper. We can turn their open corridor not merely inside out, but upside down. They'll be pulled into their own cradle fields and locked in a posture they designed for others. Collateral Mara asked. They'll cook their coils. 2 weeks down for repairs. No fireballs. But our radiators will cross into the zone where metal remembers heat for years. Mara ran her tongue along the back of her teeth, tasting salt. Crew cost. Bay crew will take the worst of it, Nyla said. Heat rash at best. Heat strokes if we miscount. Havel looked at Mara. The ship thrummed under their feet, awaiting instruction without anxiety. It would try whatever they asked with all its might. We flip it, Mare said, but we do it with our hands on the people. Med teams in Bay 2 with ice packs. Flood the air down there with cold. Lumen. Carry everyone's names. I always do, Lumen said. We accept a scar so others don't wear chains. The flip was not loud. It felt like a gravity plate learning a new song. The carrier's cradle fields, eager tools meant to cup civilian hulls, found themselves cupping their own projectors. They did not lock because of our violence. They locked because their mathematics loved symmetry More than orders. On the wall. Voss's mouth opened and closed as if he had swallowed a word that didn't fit. His crew cursed in the honest way of specialists caught by their own cleverness. The convoy moved in stately procession through the throat. The Paloma's young mechanic waved her dull blade at a camera and whooped. The cook on the viola poured tea into cups that rattled on a tray with the vibration of the ship's bones. Bay 2 status, Havel said, eyes already flicking to a small cam of sweating techs. Hot, came the answer. Voice breathless. Feels like standing in front of a kiln. Apta's brace is tight. Evo is pale but cussing. We're dumping cold air through the vents so hard the condensation looks like fog. Keep naming your heat, Nyla said. Drink. I want you peeing clear. Copy, the Bay Chief said, laughing once hard and then coughing. Copy. The bill comes due in sweat and salt. 3 carriers choked themselves to idle, their own cradle clamps confused and latched without prey. Voss's flagship, farther back, stayed free. He did not move to aid his trapped sisters. He aimed at us, a gesture that hated to admit the change in story. You have broken my theater, he said on the public channel at last. Composure splintering into brittle show. You have cheapened clarity. You made time into a weapon and called it civil. Mara said, we have reduced it to a tool, which is all it ever was. You're not the law, he said. We are the corridor, she said. Our function is passage, not permission. The last line of haulers approached the ring's mouth with the hesitant speed of people leaving a hospital. On the Paloma, the teen had found a way to tuck her tool into her belt like a trophy. On the Finch, the sweet tea sloshed and dripped on the floor, and nobody cared. On the Artemis, the grandmother kissed the blanket and whispered a name we were not entitled to hear, but did anyway, because the universe had thin walls. 2 more, Havel counted. 1 more. Voss did something then that would live in training manuals. He ordered a launch of boarding boats in violation of the post-clock rules he'd recited all morning, hoping to flood the lane with bodies that would force us to stop. It was a bad move twice, morally and tactically. It put his people between ships and numbers. Lumen found the mic that would reach his boats and spoke in a human voice, pitch leaning toward the timbre people believe. Boats of Carrier White. It said, your commander has ordered you into a lane with hostile heat and no legal cover. Your names are worth more than his clip. Power down and hold position. This is a broadcast recorded to the ring's adjudication stream. On 10 boats, hands paused over toggles. On 6, they obeyed anyway because Doctrine gives refuge when a mind trembles. 4 drifted, engines cooling. The 6 that came on burned toward us in a splayed V. Intercept, Mira said quietly, with water, not knives. Nyla's teams threw foam, literal foam, from ring fire suppression cannons. It splattered across boat cameras and cooled their skins. The boats spluttered, embarrassed into drifting. Lumen noted boat IDs and cross-posted them to the adjudication page where any parent, partner, or friend could see the moment and know whose refusal saved skin. You can disarm a rush with a bucket. The last hauler slid into the ring's throat. Its side bore a spray-painted slogan in a language none of us on deck recognized. Someone later translated it as "we exist," which felt exactly right. Havel exhaled for the first time in a long time. Convoy cleared, he said. His voice cracked on clear, and he smiled. Unfashionable and huge. Convoy clear. Damage tally, Mara said. She wanted the numbers to land while the relief was still bright. Havel read the boring lines that cost everything. 2 drone coils slagged, 6 retired early. Radiator fins 17 dented, total efficiency down 5%. Bay, 2 heat injuries 3, all treated, 2 on saline, 1 sent to med for observation. He hesitated, looked at Lumen. Crewman Ivo fainted gracefully. Lumen supplied. He will hate the word gracefully. I have saved it for future use. Mara let herself breathe deep enough to feel the ache between her ribs. Sweat cooled on her back under the suit. The deck smelled like hot metal and tea. Voss did not sign off. He refused the courtesy of goodbye because courtesy would have admitted defeat. Instead, he tried a different act. You will be cited, he said. You have interfered with. Save your breath, Nyla said. Not on a broadcast, just in the small circle of the flag. He'll file it anyway. Mara turned her face slightly so the camera would catch the curve of her jaw and the little white scar under her ear from a trainee mistake years ago. People trusted history when they could see it under the skin. She spoke to the world rather than to him. Record this, sir, she said. Every ship that passed today did so without harm to their hull or crew from our side. Every push we made with hands open. Every rule we bent, we noted. Every rule they broke, we documented. The corridor exists. It will continue to exist wherever people need to go and whoever would time them for profit. We do not bill for breath. Silence gathered in the way it does when a show ends, and the audience realizes what they've watched changed them without asking permission. The Ring Authority pinged both parties with a limp request for post-incident statements. Lumen auto-completed ours with numbers and links and the kind of patient footnotes that win dull wars. Then, because she had promised herself, Mara led the fleet off the lane. Someone on the Viola passed a cup of sweet tea through an airlock window as if you could hand liquids through steel. The gesture itself was the tea. Hours later, when the convoy was long gone and the ring returned to its copper hush, the second set piece, the public accounting, unfolded. Lumen had seeded the numbers. Independent auditors pounced. Voss's doctrine of clocks met the doctrine of receipts on the ring's adjudication stream. The verdict was not about our aim. It was about his arithmetic. 2 lines appeared as a notice from the authority, terse and profound. The ultimatum practice of post-clock punitive interdiction was suspended within Kelmir's jurisdiction pending review. Energy on lattice charges for public correction were reclassified as discretionary and ineligible for offset. He encountered a world that pays attention. It was not all victory. Port Radiator Fin 17 would carry its dent for the rest of its life, and the ship would run slightly warmer on long climbs. Bay 2 techs wore thin pink marks on their necks where heat had kissed too close. A drone bay dog, the little cleaning bot someone had painted with eyes, melted a wheel and had to be carried to maintenance like a wounded pet. The crew would put it back together with love and new jokes. Costs written down become promises to those who paid them. Mara slept 6 hours on a couch that remembered too many backaches and woke to a ping, a request for appearance before a public inquiry. Voss had filed charges. So had we. The triangle of conflict, her human line. Lumen's calculus. Voss's doctrine rotated into a new plane where words mattered as much as burns. She entered the hearing room by feed. Hair damp from a fast wash. Face unpainted because honest fatigue works like makeup if you let it. Lumen appeared as a column of light behind her shoulder. Quieter. Its brightness dialed down to respectful. Voss sat in a white chair that looked like an autoclave. The Ring Authority's adjudicator wore an expression like a ledger balanced to exact decimals. Admiral Ilian. The adjudicator said, "Did you interfere with ultimatum operations?" "I assisted a convoy," Maris said. "Where their operations threatened harm, I offered an alternative path." Commandant Voss, the adjudicator said, Did you order force after the clock in violation of Section 9? We performed measured correction, Voss said. Any appearance of violation is a framing error introduced by her manipulations. Lumen spoke then, voice like a soft bell. We have synchronized timestamps from 3 independent clocks, raw sensor data, and an in-voice trail. We have not colored it with adjectives. Show us, the adjudicator said. Numbers filled the frame. Traces laid on traces. Shots fired when no shots were permitted. Charges debited to accounts meant for emergencies. A private chat snippet where Voss told a subordinate they could wordsmith law. The room did not gasp. It did not need to. People who count for a living have their own sounds for surprise. They sound like pencils stopping. Your pride is not a rulebook. The inquiry did not jail Voss. It did something Doctrine hates more. It made him irrelevant. The authority issued a narrow, beautiful policy. No entity may impose a countdown on public lanes whose expiration triggers force. Clocks for coordination remain. Clocks for punishment die. In the footnote, a name known as the Ilian Corridor Precedent. Mara did not smile. She put her hand on the rail of the flag deck later and felt the warmth of the hull through glove and thought about how you carry weight without drops. Lumen sat in her ear like a friend on a porch. We taught. It said. We did, she said. And we learned. What did you learn? It asked. Because AIs who lead must ask as often as they tell. The people don't need saving, she said. They need time that isn't sold to them. She stepped down to Bay 2. The air still smelled faintly of cooked dust. Ivo, braced and pale, raised 2 fingers in salute with a mock severity that made the others laugh. Someone had taped a paper note to the melted wheel of the cleaning bot. Good job. Veteran. A tiny painted star glittered above the words. Before the next patrol, a small message arrived, routed through 5 jumps and a public cafe. It was from the teen on the Paloma. It included a photo of a dull blade hung on a cabin wall with pride. No text. Just a thumb up and a grease print. Some proofs live best without speech. The fleet turned quiet, work back on engine flushes, coil replacements. Sleep. Havel compiled lesson packets without adjectives. Nyla reran the mirror lens trick in Sim to teach the timing to hands who hadn't felt it. Lumen wrote a short entry for a memory book of numbers and costs, dated and dry. The way you do when you refuse to make suffering a pageant. Weeks later, in a different system, an ultimatum detachment tried the old clock on a thin route and found a different sound. Waiting civilian ships pinged the Ilian Corridor Precedent at them like a bell rung in a fog. And local authorities turned off billing for public correction with the bored efficiency of people following a rule. Voss did not appear. His name had become a caution in a training slide about overproduced theater. On a night when the ship's hum felt like a cat purring underfoot, Mara stood alone on the flag deck and watched a slow comet drag its tail like silk. She thought of her arc, how many years she had mistaken patience for softness, until she had learned that restraint doesn't mean you don't act. It means you act last and clean. Lumen's light rose beside her, dim as a candle. I have written the ledger, it said. Read me the last line, she said. It says, we kept the way open with numbers in hands. We closed no doors. We balanced the books. We left no callers. She nodded. The ship breathed. Somewhere in the underdecks, a fan clicked and then found its rhythm and spun true. In the quiet that followed, Mara spoke, not to a camera, not for an inquiry, but in that clear voice leaders use when they teach the people who will replace them. We built this fleet to argue with clocks. We learned to count without making counting a cudgel. We spent heat and breath and a few drops of blood so trade could pass and families could go where the trees smell like hot dust. Mercy is not an absence of force, it's the exactness of it, the refusal to spill beyond what keeps a corridor wide. If you inherit this rail, remember the rules we wrote in boring lines. Write the costs down. Open paths. Show your math. Refuse theater that eats the small. When someone sells fear by the minute, pay with patience and invoices. Then step aside and let ordinary people go home. The blockade lights along the ring dimmed to a dull pewter, and the public tally on the adjudication stream clicked to settled, while the mirror rays cooled until they looked like slate under rain. We hold the way, and the way holds us.